How are we doing, everyone? And welcome into our first of 3 episodes here on Monday morning for Week 8 fantasy football action. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at 5 running backs to go out and trade for early on in the week here. Even though we've still got Monday Night Football, your Week 7 matchups aren't quite closed yet. These are some opportunities to start thinking about and trying to take advantage of here as we close in on the halfway point of the fantasy season. It's going real quick here, and the closer we get to the fantasy playoffs, we want to be improving those rosters and getting the best amount of upside possible for our lineups at the end of the season here. So we're not going to waste too much time. Let's hit that intro, get straight into our first must-buy player. Let's get started. Before I dive into my first must-buy running back for Week 8 fantasy action here, I do have some quick and exciting news that I want to share with all of you. We're looking to gain an even more interactive experience here and get an additional edge in your weekly matchups on top of the information that you're able to gather from my weekly episodes. There's an opportunity for each and every single one of you watching today's video, or potentially a lot of the other videos that I'll be posting throughout the week here, because I'm going to be promoting this a lot, to gain a free month-long membership to SFS Gold, which is our exclusive membership perk here on the SFS channel on my website, ThriveFantasy.com. For those of you who've been tuning in for a while now, you probably know I'm an affiliate for an app and a website called ThriveFantasy, which is a really cool service. They have player prop style daily fantasy sports betting where you're picking the over or the under for given sports matchups, particularly football and basketball are my favorites to play on their sites. I'll post some stuff up on the screen for you to take a look at here. But the event we've got going on with Thrive right now is for each and every single one of you that goes on and signs up as a new user on their website and creates an account, uses promo code SIZZLE, and deposits $10 or more on their website. They're going to send me an email with your account information and let me know that you've signed up and played a contest for them on their website. Once that's happened, I get that information on my end. I will then set you up with your free SizzleFantasy.com account for SFS Gold, and you'll get, again, a free month-long membership on that end. So, again, all you got to do is head over to ThriveFantasy.com, create an account, and sign up to play. Deposit $10 or more, all the way up to $100. They will match you from $10 all the way up to $100, whatever you deposit. So if you play and put in $50, they'll match that and give you $50 on top of that. You'll have $100 to play with on your Thrive Fantasy account. I'll be posting my Thrive Fantasy lineup for Monday Night Football on my top 5 must-add players list for Week 8, which is also coming out today as well. So if you want to go check that out, get an even better feel for Thrive Fantasy and the awesome features they have on their website, go check that video out and take a look. But again, those of you who deposit $10 or more using promo code SIZZLE, SIZZLE, you'll get it, or I'll get a notification letting me know that you went ahead and signed up within 24 hours for them, and then I'll turn around and work with you to get your SFS Gold account set up. So go check that out. A great offer that we've got going on for a limited time right now. Darrell Henderson. All right, that went a little bit longer than I expected it to, but I think that's something you all would love to take advantage of. Darrell Henderson's my first must-buy running back for Week 8 here. This one was really simple. When I saw the lack of productivity he had this week, I was not concerned one bit. I am not at all in the realm of panicking on Darrell Henderson. As a matter of fact, in leagues where I don't own Darrell Henderson, I'm going to go out and make some offers for him this week. The Lions are just gritty. They play tough football, and they go out there and scrap and claw and fight to try as hard as they can to pick up wins. And it hasn't worked out yet. They haven't quite got the deal done yet. But this is a team that tries, and they play really dang hard football. And they stopped the run this week. They got the job done. One of the worst units against the run came out here and showed up and held Darrell Henderson to 3 yards per carry. 15 carries, 45 yards rushing on the ground. He was stymied. Didn't find the end zone. Only 3 catches for 19 yards, which isn't all that terrible. But on top of the rest of his productivity, it was nothing to really just be too excited about or too flattered with. I mean, it was very modest, below average production. And for a running back who's not an elite talent, he does have an elite offense, a super efficient offensive group that moves the chains on a consistent basis and keeps drives extended and prolonged, moving the football downfield. He's going to have a lot more opportunities to find the end zone this year. He's going to have a lot more efficient outings this season and games in which he's able to produce a lot better in the yards per carry department. Again, only 3 yards per rush in this matchup, 15 carries again for 45 yards. So nothing too impressive across the board for Henderson this week. He pretty much put up dud numbers in every statistical category. There wasn't much to take from this. This was a very nip and tuck football game until the late stages when the Rams really started having success passing the football. And once that happened, the run game was an afterthought. And Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford were just moving the chains downfield over and over and over again. So Darrell Henderson, I'm not panicking. This has been one of the most steady and consistent fantasy performers up to this point this fantasy season. Go out and make an offer for him. He's a high-end RB2 heading forward down the stretch the rest of this season. Nick Chubb. Now, this is a big-ticket player here, and I've had my reservations about Chubb so far this season, but a door has opened up of opportunity for Nick Chubb in this Cleveland Browns offense, and that's that Kareem Hunt is on the injured reserve, and is obviously the fact that he's on the injured reserve, creating a space where there is no potential touchdown vulturing and stealing of extended periods of playing time from Nick Chubb's fantasy outlook, which has been a very real force in 2021 fantasy football. Kareem Hunt's been dominant. He's walked out here on the field, and in the snaps he's been getting, which have been more productive and invasive into Nick Chubb's fantasy outlook this year than even last year in 2020, that's caused a bit of an issue. And Nick Chubb's produced in spite of that fact, but it has been, in some sense, a knock on Nick Chubb's ceiling, and something that as fantasy managers has been really, really annoying to see. Nick Chubb is one of the best pure running backs in the National Football League in terms of the damage he does on rushing attempts and what he's able to do, reading his blockers, finding the open hole, and just the vision he has as a rusher, the explosiveness in the open field. It's spectacular. You've got yourself a 2, 3, maybe even 4-week stretch right now where Kareem Hunt, I believe his estimated time of return is between weeks 11 and 14. That's a wide array, but we'll see when he's able to battle through that injury, suit up, and become healthy again. You've got yourself a chunk of time where he's not going to be factored into that situation. This presents some really nice upside in numbers that he could potentially produce in the absence of Hunt, while Chubb has that backfield somewhat to himself. Now, Dearness Johnson came in here, had a very, very productive game this past Thursday against the Denver Broncos. But even if he's sprinkled in here a bit, I can't imagine that his productivity is going to match the success that Kareem Hunt was having and the invasiveness that he was having into Nick Chubb's role. So Chubb's got himself here 3 weeks, maybe a whole month of potentially producing really quality, really elite numbers that we know he's capable of without another significant factor in this backfield. It is worth noting he's not a guarantee to play this week. So that's something to consider. Maybe you want to wait till later in this week to make the trade. But maybe if you want a cheaper trade price, you go out and take this risk early on in the week and try and find a way to get him on your team so that you don't have to deal with that price rising later on if we hear the news that he will be starting this coming Sunday for Week 8. And Kevin Stefanski said he's hopeful that Nick Chubb will be available, but again, not a surefire guarantee here. So if you can go out and buy a little bit lower for a big ticket player like Nick Chubb, he is certainly an established RB1 at this point. There's no questions about that. This is a player that in such a thin RB crop this year, I would really feel comfortable and safe with having on my team. J.D. McKissic. This is a very, very interesting one. So two sides of the pendulum swing here. You've got Nick Chubb, the big ticket RB1 type player, and you've got J.D. McKissic, who I would classify as a high-level flex asset. But what I love about J.D. McKissic, and the reason that I'm going out and trying to buy him in a trade, is the trade price isn't all that high. The lineup value is there, and this is a trade asset that I see having appreciating value in terms of his fantasy productivity and worth to your roster would more likely than not grow if various things play out in this backfield that are not guarantees but are the potential unfoldings of this Washington football team offense. Antonio Gibson's shin worries me to no end. He held up this week against the Packers, wasn't overly efficient. He was actually outproduced by J.D. McKissic in that performance. But the point here is that if Antonio Gibson were to have a shin-on-shin collision, if he were to worsen the situation that his health is in right now with that stress fracture in his shin, that only means more productivity, more volume, more work for J.D. McKissic. So JD's role is already a productive flex asset in PPR leagues. He can already go out there, catch enough passes to get the job done in your fantasy lineups on a week-to-week basis and be a serviceable player. But in other formats, if something were to happen to Antonio Gibson, which right now it's no guarantee, that's not something that I'm going to try and push forward as a point, but there is a higher risk of him suffering an increased level of injury to a shin that he's already playing through on a week-to-week basis with some risk and some limitations. So JD could potentially fall into a bit of a volume goldmine if something were to happen to his backfield mate here. We don't want that to be the case. We're not wishing injuries upon Antonio Gibson, of course, but he is a very valuable flex asset who has a skill set that, especially in PPR leagues, is very, very valuable to fantasy owners, and again, has the potential to appreciate down the stretch here. So it's a rare situation that you find yourself with a handcuffed fantasy running back that does have starting level potential in your lineups. That's the case with JD here. And on those weeks when he gets a heavy target load, he's kind of a bugger to go against in fantasy leagues on a week-to-week basis. Austin Ekeler here, back to a big-ticket player. Our last impression of him was the blowout loss to the Baltimore Ravens. The whole Chargers offense, football team was a mess, a disaster, a steaming hot pile of trash, basically. And then the Ravens come out here and lay a dud the following week. So, yay, football. It's really easy to analyze this stuff and to break down which teams are actually the true players when one team dominates another top team but then goes and plays a division opponent and gets squished by what was once a little brother with the Cincinnati Bengals. It makes for entertaining TV, we'll say that. And obviously Jamar Chase, holy cow, is he ever something. Him and Joe Burrow's chemistry is just on another level. It's off the charts. Austin Ekeler, though, this is a player that is one of the most dynamic in fantasy football in terms of the damage he can do as a pass-catching threat. He's almost unrivaled. I call him mini McCaffrey for a reason. Now, obviously, Christian McCaffrey is a little bit more of an upper echelon player when he's available and healthy, but that hasn't been the case so far this year. Austin Ekeler might be the next best thing. Outside of week 1, he's had 5 or more targets in every single contest this year. He's scoring touchdowns at a healthy rate. He's catching passes and, again, doing productive things after the catch, being a super, super viable threat in both standard and PPR leagues. Now, obviously, you'd rather have him in a PPR league because of those pass-catching numbers that he's adding on top of his rushing value. But he's scoring enough TDs to keep him relevant across all fantasy scoring spectrums and realms and all that good stuff. So it's a player I feel very confident with going forward here. And this Chargers offense is too talented, has too much skill potential at other positions, at the wide receiver position, the quarterback position, their tackles. They've got 2 bookend players there. And then they've got all-pro center Corey Linsley from the Packers on that offensive line right now. There's too much going for this Chargers team for them to continue to come out here and now lay goose eggs and just be really bad at playing football. That's not going to be the case. They're coming off a bye. They're going to knit everything up here, fix all of their issues from week 6. I expect them to come out and play a very strong game against the Patriots team that just scored over 50 points against the Jets this week. I think that Ekeler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they will all get back into respectable scoring level categories here in week 8. And moving forward, this is a team I feel very confident in having ownership in all of these players across various leagues. I'm very confident in the LA offense the rest of this season. And then Aaron Jones. This has been one that was a little frustrating this week. It was a weird game watching my Packers against the Washington football team. Basically what this one came down to was that Green Bay's offensive strategy was to pass the football and just tear apart that Washington defense. I mean, they were pretty stout in terms of what they were giving the Packers on the ground, and they really didn't try to run it all that much. I mean, he only had 5.5 points against the Washington football team here in Week 7. 6 carries, 19 yards, nothing impressive really there at all, just barely over 3 yards per carry. Looking kind of like that Darrell Henderson performance. But we love to see here, caught 5 of his 5 targets. Now, again, wasn't super productive with those receptions, but at the end of the day, we will take him having that receiving involvement. Another thing that's been a little bit odd here has been A.J. Dillon's increased involvement in this offense, but for Aaron Jones fantasy owners, A.J. Dillon loses a fumble this week. That's not going to sit well with the coaching staff. He might see his snaps decline now. And with what Aaron Jones has been doing with each of his touches, and he had some calls reversed, I should say. He had some plays called back due to holding penalties in this one. there's too much talent here. This offense is typically on a week-to-week basis incredibly balanced. I wouldn't go out here and pay a fortune for Aaron Jones. I would rather go out and target a Nick Chubb, who we talked about earlier on in today's video. But Aaron Jones is still in a crop of running backs where the talent, the dynamic ability, the overall productivity and potential to produce of this offense as a whole is too good. We go back to the Darrell Henderson situation, that Rams football team, that Rams offense, even the Austin Ekeler, the Chargers, their offense. It's too good. It's too efficient. The upside for them to score points and the frequency in which they find themselves in the red zone, knocking on the doorstep of scoring 6 points, is too good to not want these players on your team because they're very talented in their own right as individual players, but just the offensive potential to produce gives them more opportunities to score meaningful fantasy points. So that's certainly Aaron Jones' situation in Green Bay. The Packers put a lot of points on the board every week, or at least a respectable margin, and move the football downfield with ease at least a few times a game. So Aaron Jones, love going out and dealing for him this week. Again, I would say Ekeler and Nick Chubb are higher priority trade targets than him this week, but still someone to think about as a lower end RB1 option, maybe even a middle tier RB1 option at best here down the stretch of the season. Still could play an invaluable role in your fantasy lineups. Alrighty, those were my 5 must-buy running backs for Week 8 fantasy action here. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. Remember, if you want to get a free month-long access to SFS Gold, which again is our exclusive membership service here from the SFS channel on our website, sizzlefantasy.com, go check out Thrive Fantasy. Deposit $10 or more using promo code SIZZLE. They'll match you whatever you put in there up to $100, and then on top of that, within a 24-hour time frame, they'll communicate with us that you signed up, and we'll get you your SFS Gold membership again for a full 4-week period or month-long fantasy football exclusive membership service, and you'll get that all just for supporting the channel here and helping Thrive grow their player base. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.